By 2020, prior to 2020, our debt was at 62.4. We were looking, in fact, our projections showed that it would have declined in 2020 to 61.5 because we had posted a positive primary balance for 2020. Unfortunately, COVID hit, and what happened? We saw our revenue target plummet by about 13 billion. And
what's revenue target? What does it mean?
A revenue target, the revenue that we had projected that we'll do in 2020.
That is the money you will collect.
The money we'll collect through taxes and grants and non-oil taxes and taxes on oil. We had projected a certain amount for the year. COVID hit. Essentially, COVID started, for all intents and purposes, December of 2019. People didn't realize it, but apparently there was a lot of flu and flu-like symptoms that Christmas. Started to really crystallize in January. I think we got our first case in February, and we had to go into a lockdown situation. So the projections we did when we did the budget in November for the 2020 fiscal year really were out of whack by the time we were in February, and we saw our revenues plummet accordingly by about 13 billion. We also then had to incur additional expenditures of about 11 billion to finance the COVID-related expenditures.
Where did these expenditures go? We know that the president asked people to stay at home.
Yes.
And ask the government to continue to pay them.
Yes.
And some people say that this is the first time that ever happened in the history of Ghana where people stayed at home and were paid.
Yes.
And the president also had you guys feed people.
Yes.
Had the NADMO to feed people who were staying at home who couldn't work.
Yep.
And for free, I think 1 meal a day, something like that.
Yes.
And then in the midst of that, the president also said the people who were not working and were staying at home and were being paid should also not even pay their utilities.
Yes.
So utilities was free. And
yes. So and water was free.
So it was what? Government had to pay the utilities companies that money?
Yes, we paid the utilities, Ghana Water and ECG, the money for that.
For what we enjoy.
Well, for that
free electricity
exactly.
And free water.
Yeah, and it was important to do so because I think at that time, the focus was on protecting lives and livelihoods. And due to our communal style of living, it was very important that we found ways to alleviate the suffering of the people and allow them to stay at home without incurring additional expenditure. Because of course, if you stay at home rather than going to the office, you're going to keep the lights on, you're going to have a fan turning, you're going to do things and activities that will require more usage of your utilities, which will increase your bills. On top of that, maybe you want to be able to access the internet, so we needed to be able to provide free data, so we gave the telcos...
Did we give free data?
No, we didn't give free data, but we gave the telcos more bandwidth, more capacity.
But the NCA gave them more bandwidth,
right, more bandwidth,
so they can produce,
exactly.
So people can access data.
Internet, exactly, you know, and work from home and help with that.
Yeah.
We also then had to consider...
We didn't know that, by the way. I mean, we work from home, but we didn't know that something had happened behind the scenes, that the government had provided more bandwidth to the telcos. We didn't know that.
No, I see.
That wasn't part
that was
of
common
the
knowledge.
narrative.
No,
the narrative was free water, free electricity.
Yes, yeah.
We were not told that the government is working with telcos to allow you to have access to faster data or stable data because a lot more people were using it. We didn't know that.
Oh, no. And in fact,
but did that cost government? Is it money?
No, not really. I mean, in terms of bandwidth, it cost government because this is bandwidth that NCA could have sold for cash. Right. But you know, they gave it to them for free for them to be able to meet the huge increase in demand. You know, and also the telcos came to the party, and I should credit them for that. They then, it was at the time that they started the option of the first 100 cedis of transfers were free, because this also led on mobile money. Because this also led to an increase in mobile money activity. We saw a huge jump in transfers and mobile money usage.
Because people could not meet.
So stayed at home and paid for things. And in fact, that is what has led to us implementing the e-levy, because we realized that people's behaviors had changed. You know, all of a sudden, a lot more people were used to ordering food online, to deliver at home, order clothes from Instagram.
But we have stayed with it. We haven't stopped.
Exactly.
We've stayed with it.
Exactly. And we see that in the numbers. Our VAT receipts haven't grown as fast as they used in the past. And because a lot of people don't pay VAT when they shop online as compared to if they walk into a brick and mortar shop. So people's behaviors have changed, and they've changed permanently. And so now we've had to also look at ways to change our tax collection mechanisms to address this new digitalization age, which was fast-tracked by the COVID pandemic. And in fact, I personally have seen my shopping habits change. I mean, now I shop a lot more on Amazon and other places. It's become very convenient for me, and I'm sure a lot of people do the same. And so, as a country, if we do not adjust our tax collection efforts, we will also be left behind in our ability to collect our taxes.
So let me ask you, did we or could we have overspent with all this COVID process in the panic, in the decision, the desire to make people's lives better, to save livelihoods? The president said we know how to restore an economy, but we don't know how to bring back the dead.
Yeah.
In that frenzy, did we overspend?
No, I don't believe we did. I mean, I think some of the expenditures turned out to be not as effective in addressing the pandemic. For example, let me give you a classic example. This whole disinfection drive. At the point, it was said that the virus, could not survive in the air for a certain amount of time, but you needed to disinfect and so forth and so on. And so we spent quite a bit of money on making sure we had disinfected all public places,
markets,
schools,
and all that,
markets, and so forth and so on. In hindsight, it may not have been the most effective because people still got infected anyways. And the infection was more, the virus didn't last that long when it's airborne.
WHO itself kept changing the dynamics of the virus.
The WHO kept changing. In fact, till today, now, first it was once you got vaccinated, you won't get the virus. Now they say once you get it, you get a virus, but you won't die. Now they're saying you need a booster. I mean, it is a very dynamic, changing situation. And with all these, with these kind of pandemics and these new ailments, you learn as you go along. And as a country, you have to do whatever you can do to ensure that you protect lives and livelihoods as you continue to collect data to see what is more efficient and what is not. I mean, masks, for example, have proven to be one of the most effective ways of protecting yourself. And you can see that nowadays, everybody wears masks. It's become quite a norm. In fact, when I look at meetings today and I see everybody in a mask, it amazes me how we've adopted this. This is something that they've been doing in China for years. You go into China, you see everybody wearing a mask because they have very high levels of smog and air pollution. So
you don't think that there was overspending?
No, I don't believe so. I believe there may have been misdirected spending in an effort to find ways to prevent and save lives. And in hindsight, realize that they were not the most effective ways of protecting our people, but it was a matter of lessons, and this happened everywhere in the world. I know in America, they spend quite a lot, including writing big fat checks for every household in an effort to try and get people to stay home and try and address the pandemic. And there were even issues about the type of vaccine to buy and the price to pay, and at some point there was such a huge demand for vaccines that to be able to get some vaccines, you may have to go through a middleman, which would cost you a little more, and so forth and so on. And there was a huge, what they called, scramble for vaccines, and African countries.
But we are still buying vaccines, aren't we?
We still are.
Our vaccine policy is still free for the people. The vaccination is free.
Yes, it is free.
So government pays for it.
The government pays for it, and we've administered about, I think, 7 million doses as of now.
Of the first dose.
Of the first dose, I think, and we now have, I think, about 17 million doses, access to 70 million doses in tranches, from the ADU and the COVAX program. So on the vaccine front, we're doing very well, and we do have all the vaccines that we need.